All right, now a lot of people have started on the Linux journey, and I think several of you already know Linux. So this Linux journey is probably not necessary for you, and let me show you why I put it in there. The reason why you need to know some Linux is so you can start doing these command injection challenges. So if you look at 102, here's one of the simplest web vulnerabilities that people exploit. And here's the simplest case of it, is this ping form. So in your router configuration page, there is a place where you can test the internet connection. So you can put in an IP address. Normally you'd use a remote IP address, but on my server I had to block remote pings because somebody kept exploiting it and using it for DDoS attacks. Oh, you can't see my screen. You can if you go to Twitch. So let me give you the URL for Twitch. This is, yeah. So, yeah, people who can't see my screen, please go to Twitch. There, I put it here. Good. And by the way, if anything like that is happening, you can't see my screen or anything, speak up. Don't be shy. Because especially under these remote conditions, a lot of people have problems. And it's not like we're in a hurry or we have to cover all the material to get to a certification exam or anything. The most important thing is to make sure that everybody is able to see what they need to see. So anyway, here, you can put in an IP address, like 127.0.0.1, and click Send Pings to see if the internet works, and it will reply with the response to some pings. And this might look familiar. This is the standard ping command from Linux. And that shows that what's going on here is the programmer of this page, which would be me, was kind of sleazy and incompetent and didn't really figure out how to program a ping in PHP. All I did, which is what a lot of people do, is I recreated a command line here. Here's the PHP that runs this page. I take the IP address from the user and I add it to ping -C2, and then I execute that as a system command. This is how you create command injection vulnerabilities. Instead of actually writing your program in one language, you use one language to create a line of text which you then execute as a command line in another language. And that leads to these flaws. Since it's going to just turn into a command line, I can put a semicolon and another command there, like ls. And when I do, it will execute the pings, and then it will execute the ls and show me the files and folders in the current directory. So this is command injection, where you are able to take something like an IP address or a username or a password or something that was just supposed to be data, and you're able to include active content in what the developer intended to be data. So now you have the ability to execute commands on my server. And you can find out who you are with who am I, for example. And you'll see what privileges you have. This is the www data user, which is the Apache user, which is relatively low privileges. You will not be able to execute things with root privileges, but you have some ability to execute commands on my server. And therefore, you can solve puzzles. So there's a series of flags to find on the server by injecting these commands. And that's the simplest command injection. And let me show you one more, and then I'll stop and just let people work for a while, because this one was one of the big ones. You may remember maybe 5 or 10 years ago, there was a very common statement made that Linux is secure and Windows is not secure. And people who run Linux servers, they won't get hacked. And then there were some huge security disasters in Linux. The HTTPS disaster that exposed the private keys was a huge one. And this was another one of the huge Linux disasters where if you just used Windows servers, this wouldn't have happened to you. That caused all the people that thought Linux was intrinsically secure to just sort of go cry in the corner and stop saying that. So this is one of them. So if I have an image, let me get an image to use, like this one here will be fine. Let's take this logo and save it. Okay. Save as. Just ban it. Oh, here we are. Good. So on my desktop. Okay, wclogo.ping. That'll be fine. Okay. So now I have an image. And what I have here is the classic code that's used to handle images on websites like social networks or anything. You can upload an image and then use this standard library ImageMagick. So you choose a file, and I want to use the WC logo, okay, and then you upload the image. And I just copied this from like a public bulletin board, and the only thing I added was printing out the commands. So this is the command that's executed, and this program does the same thing. It takes the name of the image that came from the user, and it creates a command line command. So here it does, creating a thumbnail version of the image. And then if you click that, it goes to the full-size version of the image, or at least it should. But anyway, I'm not going to worry about that. The point is you can, this, by the way, is probably why my website got blocked, among other things, because this exploit code is very famous. So you can make a malicious image that includes this text. And let me do that. If I go to a text editor, all right, let me pull this down, put it here. All right, I put in that text in a text editor. Let's make it bigger. All right, and now I'm going to save this with an image file extension. So I file save as, and on my desktop, I'm going to call that exploit.png. So it appears to be an image. And now what's going on here is the developers of ImageMagick decided that in addition to manipulating images by size and stuff, they wanted to give you the ability to add blocks of solid color to an image. So you could add text to a file, which would then be processed by the engine. And then for some reason, they decided what would be cool would be to make the color variable. So you can fill with a color that is loaded from a website. I don't know why they wanted this feature, but they added it. And then they implemented it the same way I implemented that ping. They run a curl command, and in the curl command, they just insert this code that came from the user. So, once again, by adding a couple of funny punctuation marks, you can add a command line Linux command to what is supposed to be the color inside an image. So, it will try to fill from this URL, which of course won't work because that's not a real URL, and then it will execute this command, echo hello and date. So that's my fake image, and if I upload that image and run it through this library, that is exploit.ping, okay, and now I upload the image, it will execute the convert thumbnail command, and now it prints out hello and it prints the date. It cannot actually make a visual image out of that, but it does give me command line execution on the server. So once again, it's just a little bit more inconvenient to do, but by adding your code here, you can execute commands. And some commands are, I think, greater than signs might be blocked. Anyway, you have some limitations, but the point is now you've got, again, some flags defined on the server. So give those things a try, and that's why you need to know a little bit of command line Linux to exploit this, because the server is running Linux.